Welcome to video 3 in this series on formatting fundamentals. In this video, we're going to cover one of the most critical skills in formatting, breaking apart someone else's file to identify their formatting style so you can copy it. Every firm has a different formatting style. Sometimes that's a minor difference from firm to firm, but sometimes it's major. Either way, you want to make sure that when you start a new role, you're able to get your formatting in line with their standards as quickly as possible. With this in mind, I'm going to show you how to break down formatting into elements that can be identified easily and replicated over and over again. One note, while I'm using a table here to actually write these things out, that's not something I would actually do when I'm working with a new consulting client or firm. Given that I've been doing this for a while now, I can mentally track these items pretty easily. The approach you're seeing here is meant to help give someone with less experience breaking down formatting a framework that they can use so they can understand the key parts of a new firm's formatting. The more you do this, the less you'd actually need to write things down in this way, but when you're getting started, this can be a helpful tool. Jumping in, we're going to start with the revenue line. The first thing we're going to do is identify the font and font size. Looking at the cells, I see that these are Arial font and font size of 10, so I'm going to enter that into the font format section. The next thing we're going to do is identify the specific number formatting that's being used. This is something that firms typically get very picky about, so we want to make sure we're being precise. To do this, we'll highlight one of the cells that we're focused on and then select the drop-down next to the word number in the home menu. This will open a menu that lets us see details about the way that the numbers are formatted. What we see here is that the category they're using is named currency. We also see that there is 1 decimal and that negative numbers are shown in a parenthesis as opposed to having a minus sign next to it. Now that we know all of this, we can enter that information in the number format section. Moving on, we identify if this data is a formula or a manually entered number. We see that the revenue figures are all manually entered, so we're going to put an X in the hard key section. One note here, the fact that these are all manually entered numbers shows us how the firm formats those types of numbers. In the investment finance space, light yellow cells with electric blue text is pretty common for manually entered figures, whereas formulas are typically black text on a white cell. With this all said, the next thing we can do is move to identifying the colors. Identifying colors is something a lot of new modelers mess up because they just try to eyeball it. Believe me when I tell you, firms get very specific about their coloring, and you should not try to just eyeball it to mimic their color schemes. Instead, what we're going to do is actually find the distinct color code we need for the color scheme the firm uses. We'll do that for the font color first, and then we'll do it for the background color. To do this, we're first going to select one of the cells that we're focused on, go to the drop-down menu for text color, and then select the option More Colors. Doing this will open a menu with 2 pages. The page we open to is called Standard, and it has a bunch of little hexagons with different colors. We could try to memorize which specific hexagon is the one that we want, but that's harder to remember and harder to describe to someone who we want to teach our formatting to. Instead, we'll select the custom menu as it lets us see the colors that are being used broken down to 3 distinct codes. For every color in Excel, there's a pre-assigned number for 3 elements: red, blue, and green. This is frequently shortened to the term RGB codes. By learning your firm's RGB codes, you can replicate any of the colors that they show you exactly as they showed them to you. One note, if you do this enough, there's a good chance you'll end up actually memorizing these numbers, which makes things much easier, but when you first start, you definitely want to have these written down somewhere. Looking at the blue that we have here for the text color, we see that the RGB code is 00255. Now that we know this, we can enter those numbers in the font color section. Moving now to the cell background color, it's substantially the same process. We'll select a cell we want the color code for, go to the drop down for cell backgrounds, that's the paint bucket icon, and select more colors. This will open a menu that's identical to what we saw before. From here, we can select the custom section of the menu, and we see that the RGB code is 255, 255, 204. We can copy that in, and now we're almost done with this row. The final thing we'll need to do here is identify if anything is bolded, italicized, or underlined. We see here that nothing is, so we can leave this section blank and move on to the second row. Looking at the second row, this whole process should move much more quickly as it's the exact same process we had before. Step 1, we check the font type and format, and we see that it's also Arial and 10 point. Next, we go back to the number menu and see that they're using the percentage format with 1 decimal. The percentage format will always show a minus sign when negative unless you create a custom format. So we'll just enter a minus in the negative display section, as we know that's just the way this format is built. Moving now to the next section, we see that the 2 populated cells are formulas, so we can put an X in the formula cell. Now we're going to go to the color sections. Starting with the font color, we open the font color menu and see that the RGB code on the custom tab is 000. Next, we can go to the cell background color menu, and we see that the RGB code is 255, 255, 255. As a quick note, these codes go from 0 to a maximum of 255. 000 is always all black, and 255 is always all white. With this all done, the final thing to do is check for other formatting. We see that the numbers are italicized, so we put an X in that box. With that, we've completed this video. In the next video, we're going to walk through how to fix formatting mistakes or inconsistencies.